So did we want to discuss a couple articles or one article that we saw this week, and then I'll get into a little bit more about, I was reading a memo, Howard Marks's memo on the way back, and we can get into that after we look at this. Yeah, I mean, this was interesting. It's an article from Bloomberg. Congress, there's a proposal for a Congress stock trading app. Essentially, the symbols are NAC and it's Cruz, so probably Nancy Pelosi and Ted Cruz, I believe. Yeah, basically. So essentially a pair of exchange-traded funds that would mirror the personal portfolios of members of Congress. It may be coming soon. The fund would be constructed of this is in the filings, 500 and 600 companies. So they'd be called the Usual Whale Subversion Democratic ETF under Nance. And then the unusual... Yeah, is it or the usual? Yes, or it's the usual.
Yeah, they're both unusual.
Republican. Yes.
Yeah, like that's their company branding. Yeah.
Yes, I get it. Okay, now I would say financial industry, kudos, you've done it again. Like, let's not try to create great investment vehicles or strategies based on tools that historically achieve success or have some kind of reasonable, testable, novel concept that should work. Let's place clients in investments that genuinely that we believe will create wealth for the long term. Hell no, let's not do that. That sounds boring. Instead, let's slap together a headline-grabbing marketing vehicle that is half-baked and based on the hope that Congress are basically all corrupt and or great investors. Well, one could argue for the first. The second is not true. And to me, it seems ironic that the same investors that will probably flock to an ETF like that are the same ones that call Congress morons on a daily basis. But apparently they assume they are all legendary investors. So even if this holds true, do any of you truly believe that Congress holds all the power and levers to ultimately make any stock they choose hugely successful? Yes, Congress decisions they have to be the only factor one should choose in making their investment models. Not the quality of companies' management. It's effing products or services, the company's valuations, its growth prospects, interest rates, etc., etc., etc. These, I'm going to say, are crap vehicles designed to grab headlines and draw investors to the fund companies. In fact, they should actually do the opposite. I will go on to say, again, we said the disclosure in this fund says it'll have between 500 and 600 holdings. With that many stocks, it'll basically track the index. You can have, and we talk about this all the time, you can have a well-diversified portfolio with 20 to 25 stocks. The exercise of this fund, to me, is ridiculous. Finally, to top it off, they're charging 1% fee for an exercise which needs little research, zero original thought, and could basically be run by the average hamster. In fact, I predict over the long term, a hamster invested in the S&P 500 will beat this ETF. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Tell me your opinion.
There's a prediction. We make annual predictions, so maybe we should take a look at this in a year and see how it performs.
Yeah, if it even gets listing.
Yeah,
maybe it was just done for headlines. Even if it gets...
And that is like an interesting case. Maybe it was just for headlines, because I was reading an article where last week on Wednesday, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, said that they would bring legislation to the House floor this month that would place new restrictions on the ability of lawmakers to buy and sell stocks. And then they say a version of a legislative framework in the House outlined in a late August memo that was reviewed by the New York Times would effectively prohibit lawmakers, their spouses, and dependent children from making trades in individual stocks, bonds, crypto, and other financial assets tied to specific companies, but they could essentially invest in mutual funds and ETFs still. So,
which would be fine, because I mean, a mutual fund and ETF or an ETF is going to have a very wide net, so they're any type of insider trading or knowledge isn't going to be relevant. I suppose the exception could be if you're talking about an industry ETF. Maybe one of the politicians would have some information specific about an industry or legislation was going to be passed, either benefit or negatively impact an industry. So that I suppose there could still be some, but. In that case, like there was discussion and much discussion on Twitter and Reddit about Nancy Pelosi's and
it was ahead of the funding for the semiconductor industry, essentially, and, you know, holding securities like NVIDIA that could possibly benefit from that ahead of that. And, you know, it's happened in many times. I mean, there's a Twitted. I just combined Reddit and Twitter. That's impressive. Like, there's a Twitter account that basically tracks all of her trades and her husband's trades, and, you know, it has like 164,000 followers. So, I mean, you put this ETF, you know, that gets on that. You got 165,000 potentially people that are watching that. I mean, you get a lot of press, but I mean, I would just hope we could do better in the financial industry. There's a ton of crazy, stupid, to be honest, ETFs that track ridiculous things in the market that really aren't designed in an effort to, you know, really provide great returns over the long term for clients. They're designed to grab headlines for the fund or the ETF company, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when you initially
and they'll get investors investing in them, but that's an indictment of the investors who are putting their money behind these things.
Yeah. When you initially brought this up to me, I thought that we were like going to be talking about like 40 to 50 to 60 stocks in this ETF or something, not 500 to 600 holdings.
I mean, there's so many things that you can rip apart this type of ETF that it's just on so many different levels that make it ridiculous. And charging the 1% fee to me is insane too. Like, it just, anyways, we could go on and on about that, but